let's start, like, when you hear that kind of feedback, like, what is your kind of gut reaction to it that when people kind of say, oh, it's just the same thing but with new rosters?
My gut reaction to it is that we actually innovate more than any annualized title in the industry, and it's not even close, actually. Like, think about how we're shifting, the in-game content drops, whether that's in-game apparel or music or uh, my team content or what have you. New rosters, new roster updates all the time.
Welcome to Visionaries. I'm your host, Jacob Wolf, a former ESPN award-winning investigative journalist and the founder and CEO of Overcome. Each week, we welcome on some of the most high-profile and influential people in gaming, new media, and the internet for honest and deep conversations about their roles in their industry and how they're changing the world. Today, I'm joined by Ronnie Singh, also known as Ronnie 2K. Ronnie works in the marketing department of 2K Games and is best known as the public face of NBA 2K, the annually released sports simulator franchise. Ronnie's been involved with the franchise for a long time, and it's pretty likely you've seen him get into arguments online with NBA players about their rating, something which, by the way, he does not control. But we wanted him on to talk about NBA 2K's place in culture and how it's educating a new generation on the game of basketball. Ronnie Singh, welcome to Visionaries. Ronnie, how are you doing?
Great. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Doing okay. Really excited to be hosting this discussion. So I want to
Glad
start.
to join you.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a while since I realized, like, when I was going back through our DMs, that we the last time we worked together on something was that NBA 2K athlete showdown thing from like 2 years ago,
Yeah, the
right at the
ESPN
beginning of the
player show.
pandemic.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
wild.
yeah. What a
A
difference.
lot of time has passed. A lot's happened.
Indeed. Yeah, we'll start there, I guess. What has it been like working on game dev while everybody's kind of spread apart and the disruption in the pipeline building out the past two NBA 2K games?
Yeah, definitely a different experience because a lot of the ideation and the things that happen that make NBA 2K great are hallway conversations and you know the NBA itself is such a like evergreen kind of like moving thing and things that happen in the real world, being able to react to that in the way that we do and only we can, it has been more challenging. But I think everybody I'm not complaining. I think that we were really blessed to be able to adapt in that way. And the last thing that you and I worked on was the ESPN Players Tournament, and that was something that was very uniquely us and being able to do that during the pandemic and fill a responsibility to like fill that entertainment void, and get you to see these athletes in a different sort of light was a really fun project to work on and something that was very us.
In terms of the actual process of building the game, a lot of people know you because you're like the face of the game, right? You're the forward facing guy. You go out there, you do all the press, media, stuff like this.
Mhm.
What are you doing behind the scene in periods that aren't around the release? Like, what is your sort of actual responsibilities for people who aren't familiar with you and how
Yeah,
you
I mean,
play?
I am not a developer. I am not a coder. I am very involved in like kind of the feedback and the culture spots of the game, and also trying to like help in whatever way that I can on what our player base is playing, and obviously our online our community is bigger than just. It's amazing now. It's now obviously the athletes, it's the celebrities that play a game, it's the content creators, it's the everyday basketball fan. There's a lot of communities that we have to serve. So like being able to like impact our development team with the ideas coming from all of these different directions and try to like continue to push the like innovation on culture within the sphere of 2K is a big one. Other things that I work on obviously are like some of the in-game apparel drops and like the partnerships around those. Some of our partner integrations, like where you see Gatorade on like the Gatorade gym and whatnot. But it's an organization that has 400 of the most like talented and hardworking people that are in the business, and so I'm just a very small cog in a very very amazing lifestyle brand that is 2K.
So you're telling me you're not solely
I
responsible for
don't
player
I
ratings,
don't fix the game. I don't fix the servers, unfortunately. I couldn't do that. Don't have the skill set.
but are you the one that gave Kevin Durant a 96? Is
I am
that
not
the
the one that
Running
gave
2K
Kevin Durant a
contribution?
96 either. No, I definitely took the brunt of it from Kevin. No, that was amazing. Like the player ratings thing every single year is just so much fun to be a part of and get these guys that are so inherently competitive to talk about this number that means in the real world doesn't mean a ton, but to these guys it means so much. And to have, he's my favorite player of this generation. I've been very on record, and he's also a really good friend of mine. We were actually having a conversation about my wedding the night before that episode on social media. But where this number means so much to these guys, and like just is this cultural phenomenon in itself is very cool.
How much of those beefs are usually real versus like kind of drumming up for content?
I'd say like some of it is definitely real. Like I think, for example, Bradley Beal's wife was legitimately angry at me thinking that I create the ratings last year. But in a lot of cases they're well documented as my friends, right? Like Cat is one of my groomsmen in my wedding, right? And so like he got mad about the ratings the same day. I think they see it as a facility to join. Like they're very smart marketing brands, these players, right? And they know that we're topically relevant at that time, and they want to be involved in that conversation, and they see it as like the cultural movement of the week. So I can see why it's important for them to like be involved in that kind of cultural moment. But I'm like so honored that like these guys, it means so much to them. I talk about it all the time now. Like it's not just the superstars, right? It's like the guys coming in the league. This is our 24th edition of 2K, and you have 18, 19-year olds coming in the league now, and that means that they play 2K their entire lives. So like in a way, I know this is going to sound crazy, but like getting drafted and making a lot of money to become an NBA player and play basketball for a living is 1A to being in a video game, which is 1B. And then to think about it in that kind of retrospect, like to be in a video game is as important as this amazing thing that only 450 people do a year, which is to play professional basketball, is pretty crazy.
For the people that are on Spaces, they can't see the merchandising that's on camera behind you, but you have Jordan merch in your background. And I think people like Mike could not give a shit less about what his rating is in a video game. Obviously, he's of a different generation. He's incredibly wealthy and successful as a businessman, post being the best player to ever play this sport.
Yep.
When
I
did
don't
you
know if
realize
that's
that started?
completely accurate, by the way. No, I'm not talking about the rating, but I don't know if this is where your question is going. But I do think he cares about his existence in our world, because very much so. Because the kids that buy Jordans, the kids that like watch The Last Dance and like learned a lot from that series, are the ones that play our game. Mark Cuban said it himself, right? Like 2K is now an educational device on these guys' brands, and we help them build, collectively into bigger, properties, and that's why Kevin Durant is involved in those conversations. Just like that's why the Jordan challenges are in 2K. It's a history lesson to keep Michael Jordan, which is as crazy as it sounds, because to me, he is the greatest of all time and the greatest athlete I've ever met or like, ever known to exist. Um, you know, there's the younger kids don't know Michael Jordan as well. And so it's our responsibility to keep him top of mind and relevant as the greatest of all time.
When do you think that changed? When do you think that NBA 2K became so culturally relevant to a certain generation, both players and fans, that is the way they educated themselves on basketball?
Yeah, I think that the introduction of my career at the same time that the NBA started to reposition themselves as a player first league over a team first league. I mean, in 2K, you used to play Rockets versus Lakers, and the NBA would talk about the Lakers versus the Celtics, and like that was always their marketing. Now it's about Steph. Now it's about LeBron. Now it's about KD. And we kind of were early on that as well, like introducing my career and making it about you as the player as opposed to being on the Rockets or being on the Lakers, like the lifestyle around that. So as we've evolved that every year, I think that that's been like the massive transition in like building influence and telling the story about yourself and all the aspects that go into that, the music, the fashion, all the decisions you make in my career. I think that that's when it culturally shifted, and that's also like when our player base got younger and started to flood in year over year, was trying to live the life of a basketball player.
Taking a quick break from this episode to have a word from our sponsors. The journey of my career has been pretty fast paced. I started writing at 17, and within 16 months, I went from having never written a published article to landing a job at ESPN as their youngest talent hire ever. With that fast paced career, I've often found myself struggling with imposter syndrome and with work related anxiety. But over the past few years, seeing a therapist really helped me guide my way. And if you think you may be feeling depressed, stressed, anxious, and overwhelmed, then today's sponsor, BetterHelp, is here to help you. BetterHelp offers licensed therapists who are trained to listen and help you. Talk to your therapist in a private online environment whenever's convenient for you. And if you're like me, where it seems there's never enough time in the day, you understand how important that convenience is. There's a broad range of expertise in BetterHelp's 20,000 plus therapist network that gives you access to help that may not be available in your area. Finding a therapist can be hard, but BetterHelp simplifies that experience. You start by filling out a questionnaire to assess your specific needs, and within 48 hours, BetterHelp will match you with a therapist. From there, it's easy. Schedule video and phone sessions, message your therapist as much as you want, whenever you need to, and everything you share is completely confidential. You can request a new therapist at no additional charge anytime. I've been seeing my therapist Diane for 4 years now, and when we reflect back on the progress I've made in my life for the better, it's a pleasant reminder of why I started seeking help and the goals I had when we first started working together. Join the 3 million plus people who've taken charge of their mental health with an experienced BetterHelp therapist. Get your 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/visionaries. That's betterhelp.com/visionaries. So I want to talk about the game itself. Every game gets criticism. It's just like the nature, and you talked about a big part of the cycle that you're a part of is the feedback system, and like both soliciting professional feedback, right, peer feedback, player feedback, like professional player feedback, etc., but also fan feedback. And something that's unique, I think, to sports games, because they, and maybe this exists in other games like Call of Duty as well, that are annual installments, is that there's a lot of critique that this game is functionally the same thing year over year. It's said very kind of off the cuff by people, and it is incredibly reductive to the work that you and your colleagues are doing over, a year or more period of time. I don't think it's necessarily meant to be insulting, but certainly people sort of feeling frustrated. And part of that too is like games are getting more expensive. PS5 and Xbox Series X games are more expensive than PS4 and Xbox One games were previously. But there are a lot of additions that are around the game. I mean, I guess let's start, like, when you hear that kind of feedback, like, what is your kind of gut reaction to it, that when people kind of say, oh, it's just the same thing but with new rosters?
My gut reaction to it is that we actually innovate more than any annualized title in the industry, and it's not even close, actually. Like, think about how we're shifting, the in-game content drops, whether that's in-game apparel or music or my team content or what have you, new rosters, new roster updates all the time. Like that's something that shifts, and then the innovation on all the modes. Like this year we had eras with going back and playing in 4 different eras, and then the Jordan challenges is all new, and the city is a whole new look, and it's smaller and much more like consumer feedback centric. I think there's a lot of games that suffer from the stagnancy of the same game. I don't think we're one of them. I think that our development team does an exceptional job of listening to consumer feedback, and changing it year over year. Now, ultimately, it's still a basketball game, right? So, like, I think that the look and feel of a sports game and like what it looks like, console generation to console generation, can be a little bit challenging from like the external perception thing. But I don't really dive too much in the noise around people who don't play our game, because the people that really play our game are always ready for the next launch, and it's that story is told, and the momentum we have around 2K Day, and then throughout the life cycle, as more and more people play the game and get more content and like continue to play with the seasons. We introduced that last year, where the game resets every 6 weeks with new content, and it's a brand new experience pretty much. I don't think that, like, I think a big part of that is because of my career. Like, we are able to innovate so much in that particular mode that it's a brand new experience every single year. So I don't buy a lot into that thought. I think it's casual people who just see a basketball game trying to release every single year. A annualized sports franchise is always going to have that problem. But from an innovation standpoint, we bring it every single year.
One thing about these titles, the analyzed sports titles, is that they are bound in reality, right? The football, basketball, they are real sports outside of the game that you're banging, and so you can't just like reinvent the wheel, right? Like, you can't completely to use League of Legends as an example, because I think they're one of the best. And every year, their game is functionally very different, right? Like, there's the core base gameplay, but they make some very significant changes that make their game completely different year over year, and they like kind of build momentum around that in November. But you have to remain grounded. You can't just reinvent basketball, right? And do you think that presents a unique design challenge around sort of creating those user experiences? And I have a follow up to that too, because something Madden did recently is really interesting on this point. But we'll start there. Do you think it presents like a different challenge of finding new places to innovate?
In the city, no, because we continue to like adapt that, and that is our fantasy world. To your point, right? Like, we can't reinvent quick game too much outside of the gameplay, and like obviously ton of work that goes into the AI and everything around gameplay and commentary and presentation of basketball. But in the city, we do get to have a lot more like creative latitude and fun, and obviously in my career and how much that changes every single year, a new kind of like story and script around that. I think that like that's where we get to innovate, and that's why I think that's what's allowed us to year over year grow this audience and get them even more excited for our new launch and continue to kind of change it culturally.
One thing that Madden actually did this year that I've actually had a lot of fun with the past few weeks since their game came out in the beginning of August is they instituted like a new passer system, which is now you can do like dynamic passing. I can't remember what its functional name is called. Basically, button input in a certain direction, a certain way. It both maps, and this is partly because the controllers allow you to input this much feedback, right? Like the new PS5 and Xbox Series X controllers are a lot more dynamic than their predecessors. You can input the direction of which you're throwing. You can hold. The hold has been a thing for a while, but you can basically target very specifically, and you can get it almost to the point where like over the shoulder passes and stuff feel pretty realistic to football. Like, and it's the first year of them doing that. I thought it's really cool to play around with that. Something that a couple years ago when NBA Live came back and it was the first competitive basketball game to you all in some time. Like, you had that lane very narrowly. They tried some of that more like off the cuff, even in the quick game classic modes, like the things that you can't really functionally change. Some of them felt super wonky, though. I will say, like, that game's Euro step was disgusting. Like, you could just Euro step with like really tall people, and it's not functionally correct at all. Have you all thought about sort of trying to play around with the shooting system or some of the other stuff, some of that more narrow stuff that like without kind of breaking the system too
I mean,
much?
every year we've adapt the shooting system, and obviously the green release is one of the biggest things this year was that whites don't go in. The full white releases, like, we took community feedback, and it's really you have to green, and the window for greener is a little bit bigger than it's been before, but not a lot. And the initial reaction by the community was, wow, shooting's a lot harder. which is a good thing because like you want it to be authentic and you want it to be difficult, but you're also a video game, so you have to kind of balance like where we live on that spectrum. I think we found a really good kind of medium, and people seem to be very happy with the gameplay in that regard. But there's always like we're always introducing new mechanisms around dribbling and passing and shooting and defense, and you see a lot of that just kind of come together in the system that we have, and that's why it's, like, again, another reason that people come back to us every single year and play the game is because the gameplay evolves, and it's a lot to do with what the community has experienced in this year's game, and we're looking to push it to the next level in next year's game.
Have you had any crazy idea pitches for maybe even in the city? Some of the things that you can change. What is like the craziest idea pitch that you've had, and ones that you, if you're going to mention some, like ones that you've been most passionate about, even if they've not been enacted.
You know what's funny? Uh, we obviously have gameplay feedback all the time, but I'll never forget this. Before we had the neighborhood or the city, we had a visit from a Make a Wish kid, and he was like, "Oh, what'd be cool is if you could meet a bunch of people in like a open world type thing, yada yada yada." And we were going to introduce it literally 3 weeks later. um, Even though we had been working on it for this stuff doesn't happen overnight, as you know, Jacob. Like
Yes,
it's
yeah.
building video games is very difficult. So this is a multi-year kind of approach, and to hear that though, like it was like kind of interesting right before we did it because it was like, wow, this is where the consumer wants us to go, and this is where we're heading. This is what we've been working on for so long. I think those are the kind of moments where we feel like self justified. Not a crazy idea. I mean, there's plenty of off the cuff ideas, but we are restricted in the real world with the NBA in some ways, and then in some ways we get a lot more imagination in the city and whatnot.
I want to pivot the conversation a little bit because this year you all did a couple different things that really surprised me by bringing in, I have an esports reporting background. I'm super familiar with that space. You guys both brought in people like Dr. Disrespect to have sort of part of the game in the town as well. And then you did a collaboration with Honored Thieves, who are like a hardcore esports lifestyle brand. And that struck me because it feels like the fold of the NBA 2K ecosystem is opening a little bit more, right? It's not just Jordan Brand and Adidas and the other things, kind of the things that are connected to the game of basketball more regularly. Can you walk me through a little bit of that process and the decision to kind of open that fold a little bit?
I don't think you might have noticed it this year because of the characters you just mentioned, but I think we've been moving in that direction for a few years now. Like as this thing becomes more of a RPG in a way, right? Like we have to lean into all aspects of culture, and a big part of culture is that's kind of storytelling driven narrative video game playing, right? And so I think that's where that kind of plays in. We are always trying to innovate with music, fashion, culture, all the stuff, but a big part of that is the trends in gaming.
Are there any that you look at trends wise and go, that's where you want to go? Like how are those things decided?
I think it's a multi-year thing. I always use this example, but I'll use it again for you. How we got to the 2K League and competitive 2K playing, right? How did that happen? Because when I first started in NBA 2K8, our game, like I said, was quick game, Lakers, Rockets, whatever, right? Um, we had to bring on my career in NBA 2K10. Then we had to give you the opportunity to make friends. So like that's where Cruz came from in 2K11. Eventually, we had the park in 2K14, and then 2K15 we let you scan yourself so you'd look like yourself.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then there was the Jordan Rec Center and then Pro Am, and like all this development was all moving towards a long-term vision of what we always wanted to be, which was a competitive game. But that wasn't going to happen overnight. Like people that play roles in video games, you had to find teammates that played. So multi-year kind of navigation to get to that place where we could do competitive gaming in the way that we wanted to do it. Doesn't happen overnight. So like that's how we think about the innovation stuff. Like of course there's things that are on our roadmap, and but there's also a lot of things that we led the innovation on. Like we had in-game concerts before anybody else did. We were the metaverse before the metaverse in a way, if you think about it. So like, yeah, but we're always gonna want to continue to lead the way and stuff like that.
One of the parts that's interesting about you that I've kind of seen this evolution of your career is you yourself are a part of like the culture. You're a cultural icon in yourself. Obviously, yeah, there's a reason you do a lot of this press and media, etc. Um, why did you decide to start doing that? Like, what was the decision to become much more forward facing, considering your background is kind of in consumer marketing, and you could have just kind of remained behind the curtain?
That's a great question. It wasn't never part of the plan. Like I think it was just, hey, this guy's an authentic 2K fan. I got my start on the forums. Like that's as authentic as it gets. I'd get back from my job before I worked at 2K and play 2K, 2K5, 2K6, like between the hours of 12 and 4 in the morning, just like a lot of our fans do now. And I wish I could now, but now like it's my job, it's my lifestyle. I'm on the road all the time. I still play it a lot, but like obviously not those crazy hours. As I'm getting married in a couple weeks, so like that's been a massive time drain on me to get ready for that alongside our launch and whatnot. But to answer your question, like it was never intended, but I think it was just authentic and like the rise. I told you that story about the rise of like how the NBA started thinking about their own players as personas, right? Like you care about Steph Curry's story, you care about LeBron, you care about all of these guys. I think that like we just saw it as an opportunity to like connect people to people as there was the rise of influencer marketing. Like I was kind of like the OG 2K influencer and yeah, you're right. I had and maintain a lot of obligations at 2K for the marketing department in terms of social media strategy and global marketing strategy and um, influencer strategy, obviously. But those are positions that are becoming a little bit more available when it comes to talent. And what is it that I have carved out niche wise that I can just do really, really well and try to bring as much value to the fans as possible and to our brand as possible. Um, and it was obviously to be the external persona of 2K and just really share the love and passion I have for this product and the amazing people that I work with.
One thing that's striking to me about basketball fans is that, like people that are fans of gaming influencers or esports, etc., is that basketball fans really cling to personality. Personality is such an important part
Hmm.
of their culture in a way that I think they aren't for other sports. It's not that way for football. It's definitely not that way for baseball because the audience age is much older. But I think with basketball, because it's young people, because they're social media
There's no
savvy,
helmets. Yeah.
correct? Yeah, it's super personable. Um, I think that connection, like it puts this sort of impetus on everybody to be connected in that way, and I think that applies even to people like you, right?
Hmm.
Like that you have to be connected in that way. Is that like tiresome at all to maintain that level of parasocial relationship? And I guess like balancing that to the point that you were just making a second ago.
Yeah, I talked to a lot of my contemporary. I have so much respect for our content creators. I can't tell you how much respect I have for them because it is a lot of work and putting your life out there. I remember during that pandemic, like, look, I didn't have a video background experience, and all of a sudden, I'm hosting an ESPN show from my house. And I'll never forget. I wish I had BTS of this. Like, we couldn't have BTS because nobody was able to come into my house to record it. But
Mm.
like, well, I had like cameras like propped up on boxes. Like this was an ESPN shows are hundreds of thousands of dollars to produce, and here I am with some crappy camera on like a few boxes like propped up, just trying to fill the entertainment void, doing what I could for our fans, for of basketball fans during this time. Um, like it- I and I put myself out there. I'm sure you saw the Boogie Cousins thing. Like that was a malfunction in technology because I didn't know how to use half the technology. That's all that was. It wasn't like I was trying to be a vindictive person. Um, it's hard, like you put yourself out there as a content creator, you're giving yourself a lot of yourself away. And when I'm at a basketball game, it is overwhelming. I love it. Like I love interacting with kids, especially, but fans in general. It's a big part of what I love to do. All the platform work around building courts with 2K Foundations or working with Make-A-Wish kids. Like it's such a joy of mine, and it's part of the product. But a lot of it is I'm extroverted, but I'm not like extremely extroverted, right? And so and I think a lot of content creators are that way, where all of a sudden you have to put on this public perception that you are super extroverted. At the same time, I'm just a laid back guy that loves to play 2K in my spare time, and then that just became a career. And very blessed and so glad our fan base is like so cool, and I get to have a lot of fun with them on social media and clap back and troll like Katie does. But you know, like it's all out of the love of this really amazing basketball video game.
What are ways that you disconnect from that? Like healthy ways that
Oh, I don't.
you decompress?
I'm it was funny. I was having this conversation a couple days ago about how in the world I'm going to disappear for 3 weeks for getting married and having a honeymoon. I don't know, but if I don't, I might be murdered by my fiance. So I'm gonna do my best to at least seem like I vanish. I've banked a lot of content, so hopefully that keeps me satisfied. But yeah, it's not easy. I mean, this job is a lifestyle. It's and like I said, I'm not saying this from an arrogant perspective. I think every content creator's job is a lifestyle because they're bringing you into their lives all the time. They're storytelling all the time. They have to think about both content creation and brand strategy all the time. It's very hard to disconnect, but I think a lot of people are feeling that right now. After the pandemic, like our lives changed. We didn't go into the office as much, and um, you needed social interaction. So a lot of people started making content, but they didn't realize how hard work it is and how consistent you have to be and how much that's hard work. So I have so much respect for people that are in that industry
And
and willing to put themselves out there like that. That's very cool.
it's incredibly. I mean, we've had some of those people on the show, right? Like a few weeks ago,
Yeah.
we had Ludwig Ogren was on the show, who's probably the biggest influencer in all of gaming at the moment, and it's. I think I respect that so much of those people because I think people don't understand what they go through, right? Like
Yeah.
they see somebody tweeted at me this the other day that basically like how can you feel bad for influencers? They're millionaires. Like what problems do they have to worry about? And it's like, yeah, but there's a whole different level of like stress and anxiety of being a public figure.
I mean,
Like,
you saw what happened today, not to get kind of dark, but that kid that was college football player that had checked out and USC player that was having mental health issues and took a break from the team and then today took his life, right? Like everybody has their way of handling things, and it's very sad that other people can jump on and like verbally abuse or like roll into that. Like everybody's got their own situation in life, and we should all be like propping ourselves, propping each other up and supporting each other. But um, if a content creator is going to put himself out there for you, please, like support them. I'm not talking about myself. I'm just like I just saw Valky Ray and who was the other one that just took a break? Oh, Ninja, of course. Just announced that they're taking a break from streaming, and I get it, man. Like streaming every night, hours on end, it's a full time job. Of course, they're getting compensated well for it, but they worked hard for that, and they've carved their niche, and people should respect that and honor that. It's very cool.
yeah, it's this is
And
a job that
I see a few of our content creators like the 2K ones on, so I just wanted to shout them out real quick. I see Brutal Sim on here. I see who else? See a bunch of content creators on here. Guys that like make 2K content, put themselves out there, have gotten logos in the game, like just very cool. I see Tigi on here. Really cool.
I'll give some love to Black Frank White as well, who works on
of course.
Yeah, of course.
The OG, my man.
Cool. Well, I know we were short on time here, so I'm going to dive into a couple different audience questions. There are a few that people say that they could not ask them, so I will ask for them. The first one is from Mar at I'm Just Mar, which is how long does it take 2K to seek out their next cover athlete?
That's kind of like an ongoing conversation. As soon as the season starts, like there's the handful of guys that are obvious, right? And it's a select group, and it's a select group of people at 2K that are kind of making those decisions. But I'll tell you the secret sauce if you want to hear it. Like, how does a
Go
cover
for it.
athlete become a cover athlete? It's three. I'd say it's three things. One, it's trajectory. Like, are we believing that this guy's one of the next like superstars in the league? And I feel like Devin was a really good example of that. Two, do they fit with the storyline that we're telling both in the game feature wise and from a marketing perspective? And like, like I said that this is the greatest 2K gameplay wise of all time. And Devin Booker, we've talked about the ESPN Players Tournament a couple times, but he won that tournament. He's one of the best 2K players in the world. And then to put that alongside Sue Bird and Diana Taurasi and of course Michael Jordan, it just made sense there. And then the third thing is, do they play the game? Like, it's really important because it allows us to like lean in. I saw Devin 47 times this summer, and I'm not even like exaggerating. I was
Wow.
with him like every other day, and I posted this video on my Instagram a couple weeks ago that shows that like we were in LA like 6 times, we were in Vegas like 4 times, um, but that's what we need. We need somebody who's gonna help us tell the story of our game, all the beats that go into it, like all the world, the large world that the NBA has become, and what 2K has, you know, replicated in the digital world. We need a partner that's gonna help us along the way. So those are, I'd say, the three biggest things when we look for a cover athlete.
Well, what's interesting too, to me at least, is that you guys create a lot of promotional content around a lot of those athletes inside the game itself. I mean, a few years ago, I noticed that you increasingly started doing actual recognizable athlete or actors as characters as well. That's something that I think Madden took from you all eventually too. But I think you were first at doing
Mhm.
that. It's do you struggle? I mean, obviously this is like a profit and loss conversation. You have to spend a lot of money to have time to like film all these things with these people and digitize them in this way. But do you think like there's opportunity to do more of that where there's more storytelling inside of the game with the actual athletes besides just the cover athlete, and kind of you guys have bits Easter eggs here, but doing that more in a level of depth? Do you think
Yeah,
there's opportunity
I
there?
definitely think so. I mean, we did it with a lot more personality this year. You have the scene with
Yep.
Chris Brickley. I mentioned the scene, or have I even talked about the scene with me? But anyway, we'll get into that later. The Doctor Disrespect you mentioned, others. It just depends on where the storyline's going. If it demands more basketball players or more non like casual authentic people, ultimately we're going to release every year. We have to. And we're going to innovate as much as possible, but at a certain point, like there's opportunity cost with everything. And so, we only have so many mocap days in that cycle. But whatever our storyline is, we're going to do the ultimate most, the maximum that we can to get as many personalities that fit where we're going with that year's journey. We're gonna try to make that happen.
This is from username is Dev in a Chev. Crime or Rhyme is the username. Um, have you been keeping up with the current Madden pack drama as well as the VC pricing for upgrades in my career? Both are becoming big topics on social media. I've seen a couple different questions around in-game item pricing, so would love your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I have not been keeping up with any other games, so I'm the wrong person to ask about that. In terms of the experience in our game, we're trying to put out as much content as possible and give the consumer as much as we can. Um, the I remember that the cost of the game when the generation shifted was a big conversation, and obviously the price of and opportunity cost of making a game has gone up a lot. But we I think we still do a very very good job of like giving as much content as possible. If you compare it to like going to a movie, by the way, this isn't an exact great comparison, but I sometimes I think about this like going to a movie now costs almost $20, right? And we're giving
Yep.
you hundreds of hours of entertainment versus the couple hours in the theater. And it's also it's a different experience, right? It can be either super social or it can be super by yourself, and the entertainment value for that. So I tend to like say that is more the thought process there is that the more content, there's ways to earn your way to that as well. And we're trying to, give the opportunity to play the game the way that you want to, and not force you down any lane. That's what I would say about that.
Do you feel like multiplayer is becoming a bigger part of that ecosystem, and in terms of like bring my career multiplayer in particular?
How so? What do you
Is
mean?
it like, is it
Obviously we
growing?
have.
Do you see like growth on that over year? Because I know that you guys have invested more into was more time into the social aspects of the game.
Yeah, I mean,
Between players.
The path that we're going on towards like competitive and building a social community and allowing people to talk about our game with their friends and all of that stuff, that's all like very multi-year thought out. And that's why, like, of course we want to build a community that plays with each other and tells the story about being competitive and playing a lot of hours, like, against each other. We're trying to combat the mind share of entertainment in general, not just video games, right? So, um, that's the thought process there. Like, let's build experiences, multiplayer experiences that people really enjoy and can play with their friends and can meet new people and build a social community. Because guess what? We're not the only brand that's doing that. Like, every brand is trying to build social communities to, establish products.
You mentioned in that specific topic of discussion, you mentioned the metaverse earlier. Obviously, the NBA has leaned into crypto and Web3 products, right? Top Shot's a thing, and I would say it was probably one of the first major brands to lean into NFTs in that sort of way. The NBA itself. Is this something that you all have thought more about? Is leaning into Web3, especially considering the sort of gamer sentiment around Web3, which is generally very negative?
Yeah, I'd say that the discussions we have about innovation in general have always like really played out well for us, but we don't chase the shiny, like, just because everybody else is doing it. We innovate in the spaces that we think are gonna like engage our audience the best and gonna help with our player first mentality. Like, where is that going? So, and I think we've had a tremendous amount of success with that. We're not just gonna do what everybody else is doing and just attack Web3 because it's the trend. If it's a good sound business decision, and that's above my pay grade, certainly. I know for a fact our extremely talented team is gonna chase what's best for the business.
Thanks for watching Visionaries on YouTube. For more content, please subscribe to the Overcome channel.